Are you ready for the Agenda 2030 Smart City Challenge? Well, the Canadian government is about to award $75 million to the best smart city design. So in today's video, we're going to ask the question, what makes these smart cities so smart anyways? And also, fundamentally, cui bono, or who benefits? But just before I do, I want to remind you to please check out my Patreon account at patreon.com/pressfortruth, where you can support my work with a monthly contribution. So if you appreciate my efforts, please check the links on the screen or in the description below. Alright, so Google's parent company Alphabet Inc. has another company called Sidewalk Labs, and they are working with the Canadian government to launch a new smart city that's going to be located at Toronto's waterfront in downtown called Quayside. So as it turns out, Quayside is proposing a centralized identity management system which each resident will use to access public services like library cards or healthcare. Other plans include driverless cars, mixed-use spaces that change according to the market's demands, heated streets, and sensor-enabled waste separation. The eventual aim of Sidewalk Labs' estimated billion-dollar investment is to bring these innovations to scale. First, to more than 800 acres on the city's eastern waterfront, and then to the world at large. Sidewalk Toronto will combine forward-thinking urban design and new digital technology to create people-centered neighborhoods that achieve precedent-setting levels of sustainability, affordability, mobility, and economic opportunity. It sounds pretty good, right? Well, as The Intercept points out, the genesis of the thinking for Sidewalk Labs came from Google's founders getting excited thinking of, quote, all the things you could do if someone would just give us a city and put us in charge. That was Eric Schmidt, Google's former executive chair, when Quayside was first announced. So Google wants to be in charge of this new smart city because they are expanding their surveillance state beyond just the internet and into our brick and mortar physical realms. And what about all the data collection that Google will be engaged in moving forward? How is that going to be handled? Well, in an apparent response to the mounting public pressure against the project, Sidewalk Labs recently released its first proposal for the digital governance of its collected data. Most significant among these plans was the suggestion that all data be placed in a civic data trust. On the company's blog, Alyssa Harvey-Dawson, Sidewalk Labs' head of data governance, explained that with the proposed creation of a civic data trust, no one would have the right to own information collected from the Quayside's physical environment, including Sidewalk Labs. This would represent, she wrote, a new standard for responsible data use that protects personal privacy and public interest while enabling companies, researchers, innovators, governments, and civic organizations to improve urban life using urban data. But we've heard that type of promise before, only to find out it was a huge lie. Like in the case of Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, when in the early years, he was promising that they would never sell any of your private information to any third parties without your consent. And we all know how that turned out. And to ensure their plan succeeds, in anticipation of the negative press, Sidewalk Labs has allocated $11 million of its initial $50 million budget to communications, engagement, and public relations. This includes a strategy of building influencers to ensure support for the Master Innovation and Development Plan among key constituents in Toronto. Last week, iPolitics reported that Sidewalk Labs has begun lobbying at least 19 federal departments, including the Prime Minister's Office, Environment and Climate Change Canada, the Public Health Agency of Canada, and the Treasury Board, among others. Folks, if you think having the spying device Alexa in your home is bad, well, just how are you going to feel when publicly owned infrastructure like roads and bridges and streets and plazas becomes Alexa? And just when you thought the Big Brother surveillance state couldn't be ramped up anymore, the Canadian government decides to go ahead and launch this, a Smart City Challenge. The Smart Cities Challenge is a pan-Canadian competition open to communities of all sizes, including municipalities, regional governments, and Indigenous communities. The challenge encourages communities to adopt a smart cities approach to improve the lives of their residents through innovation, data, and connected technology. And the prizes are as follows. We got one prize for up to $50 million, open up to all the communities, regardless of population size. There are two prizes of up to $10 million, opened up to communities who are under 500,000 people. And there's one prize for $5 million, opened up to all the communities with populations under 30,000 people. And they've already selected the finalists, and the winners are going to be announced in spring of 2019. So this is happening, folks. We are witnessing the implementation of these smart cities that are going to merge and mesh with our smart devices and our smart appliances and our personal devices and the Internet of Things. And then what we'll be left with is an Orwellian nightmare, the likes of which George Orwell himself couldn't have possibly imagined. But this didn't just pop up out of nowhere. In fact, it's been in the works for quite some time. And I have traced it all the way back to its roots, to where this all began and to who is going to be in charge moving forward, and that is the United Nations. The United Nations Conference on Environment and Development in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, which was held from June 3rd to June 14th in 1992, produced a non-binding action plan to the United Nations with regard to sustainable development called Agenda 21, which essentially acts as a blueprint to inventory and control all land, all water, minerals, plants, and animals for total control over all of our food, all our resources, and all matter, to globalize, monitor, and regulate every single aspect of our lives. Actually, a lot has happened since 1992, and the UN has already revised their plan with a target date in mind. So the plan is now referred to as Agenda 2030. This from UN.org, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And they have declared that we, the heads of state and government and high representatives, meeting at the United Nations headquarters in New York from the 25th to the 27th of September in 2015, as the organization celebrates its 17th anniversary, have decided today on new global sustainable development goals. On behalf of the people we serve, we have adopted a historic decision on a comprehensive, far-reaching, and people-centered set of universal and transformative goals and targets. We commit ourselves to working tirelessly for the full implementation of this agenda by 2030. So how are they going to do this? Well, for that, we'll scroll down to the means of implementation and the global partnership, where it states, we reaffirm our strong commitment to the full implementation of this new agenda. We recognize that we will not be able to achieve our ambitious goals and targets without a revitalized and enhanced global partnership and comparably ambitious means of implementation. The revitalized global partnership will facilitate an intensive global engagement in support of implementation of all the goals and targets, bringing together governments, civil society, the private sector, and the United Nations system, and other actors, and mobilizing all available resources. The environmentalist movement has been hijacked, and there now is a plan for the world being instituted top-down by the United Nations for total control. So they're coming for you, folks, and don't be fooled by their buzzwords. Sustainable development is really just code for manufactured consent. And I would argue that this is going to require collectivism on steroids in order to succeed. So now is the time, more than ever, to embrace individual liberties and to reject the ideology of collectivism. With globalization, we lose our individuality. And with these smart cities popping up everywhere, and with Agenda 2030, the experience of having culture shock will soon be a long forgotten phenomenon. You weren't meant to be a hive mind species unified under a singular consciousness. No, you were designed by your creator to flourish as an individual. And so we must reject these smart cities and the UN's plans for an eventual one world government before it's too late. If you appreciate the information presented in this video, please click the thumbs up button and share it with your friends and family, because it's crunch time, my friends. And if you'd like to support my work, please check the links in the description below to find out how you can join us as either a PFT member or a PFT patron. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, my friends. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned. We've got more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. will set you free, free, free.